let's get started. So let me start by setting the context of why we are kind of doing this, right? Why the PO prioritization module? So I think that you look at it from a brand perspective, right? While we all understand and recognize that creating the right availability creates the right set of growth levers for the brand and it helps you scale faster. But a deeper question in our head was that, is it just about solving for availability, or is it solving for availability at the right DOI, right? At the best possible DOI. The reason we went into that is because if you think of it from a brand's perspective, right, it's not just about scaling, but it is about scaling in a profitable, sustainable way, right? Another way to think about that is a lot of times you might think of the P&L statement, right? And revenue is the top line of the P&L statements. But in my personal experience and in the experience of working with so many brands, right, it is basically your working capital, right, or your balance sheet, which truly makes or breaks a business, right? It is not just about the P&L statement, and that is why I think it is important to recognize that how do we create the right set of availability at the best DOI. So with that context, right, I would love to start with an example that of a success story that one of the brands that we work with, right? This was an enterprise packaged foods brand where the objective was very simple: to improve the product availability in the key metro cities, right? Now, there were multiple levels at which the problem got solved, right? First and foremost was the dark store level tracking of the stock, right? Something which, as all our brand partners know, they've been able to do with GobbleCube for for the longest possible time, right? But what ended up happening post that was a cross-team level coordination to restock effectively, right? And a prioritization of the SKUs where the fill rates were kind of changed to match the demand. And just got us thinking, because this meant that it is not just about the surface level availability, right? But there is so much to it. Think of an iceberg, right? And the tip of the iceberg versus whatever is beneath the surface, right? And of course, the results were phenomenal. There was a 3x growth in the sales when the availability over a 2-month period improved from 70 to 90%, right? But that kind of got us thinking about the multiple layers that need to be solved for as you're solving for this particular problem, right? So basically, in a way, something that we all recognize is that fact in quick commerce, right? Fulfillment fuels demand, and demand in turn fuels fulfillment. And how is your fulfillment agile to what is happening on the demand side is the name of the game, right? So how quickly can you respond? So what I'll do is, over the next couple of slides, I will kind of set certain base cases, right? Certain things, which is just to setting the context, right? Maybe I'm preaching to the converted, but the idea was to set that context so that we can truly dive in and appreciate what is being built over here, right? So first and foremost is the fact that in quick commerce, right, availability at the time of intent is much higher than brand preference, right? So for example, it's a nice rainy evening, right, and you want to have some pakoras and you want to get ketchup to go along with it, right? Now you go to the app and you look at for maybe your preferred brand is Kisan ketchup, right? But you don't find it. The use case is more important than the brand at that point of time, and you are likely to switch it. That is a habit that quick commerce is creating today, right? So in order to maintain that category leadership, you need to ensure that the availability is at the right localities, right? The second part to this is the fact that now your shopper experience is distributed across these 4,000 plus dark stores that a Blinkit, Instamart, and Zepto have, right? If we throw in the Flipkart minutes and the BB Nows and the Amazon Now of the world, right? We're talking about 5,000 plus dark stores today itself, right? So what a person sitting in a Marathali sees is very different than what a person sitting in Kundanahalli. One way we talk about that is that quick commerce is nothing but a local kirana store, but with a digital footprint, right? So the moment we start making sense of that digital footprint is where we're truly solving problems in a data-driven analytics first way, right? So like something which all our brand partners who are on this call would completely recognize is these views, right? which is how GobbleCube kind of started solving for this problem, right? The acknowledgement that analysis needs to happen at a locality level, right? Starting from a category RC, okay, where is my offtake dropping? What are the input levers that are causing that drop in that offtake, right? If the input lever is availability, how do I quickly identify the SKUs which have the highest potential sales loss, right? Which are the cities, which are the localities? Because I need to kind of create a coherent, cogent argument to kind of bring these all together, right? But this is still the surface, and that's an acknowledgement that we have, right? Because it goes much deeper than this, right? It goes beyond availability as a problem, right? Where as a brand, you're problem solving through the entire supply chain, right? So while the first question, okay, my end dark store level availability is low, might trigger a question something like, is the backend to front end transfer happening, right? But that is again, as I said, the surface. The deeper questions over there is, okay, is the backend DOI sufficient to do that, right? What if the backend DOI is low? Are there POs outstanding, which I need to be aware of and fill quickly, right? What has been my fill rate, right? Now, suddenly, if you see over here, as we are going through these set of questions, we have transitioned from a platform level problem to our own supply chain team, right? Who becomes the stakeholder over there. A very pertinent question is the last one, which is, are POs sufficient given growth, right? And this is something which came out in the last session as well, right? Because as you think about like investing in a lot of performance marketing and all those things, right? You would see a sudden surge in demand, but are the algorithms at the platforms picking that up and correctly kind of upsizing your POs to kind of sustain that level of demand, right? Or that level of shopper interest, right? So I think this kind of all put together becomes very, very important, right? Now, as we think about this, right, what we realized is a lot of the breadcrumbs of these data exist in the system, right? Things like your backend SOH, your front-end SOH, right? Things like your PO outstanding, a lot of those data points do exist. But what is important is kind of bringing them all together, stitching them together to build actionable insights and pushing those insights to the teams which are acting on it, right? I think that was the objective with which we went to the drawing board, right? And the outcome of that is this GobbleCube PO prioritization module. I will now hand it over to Rohan, who leads analytics. He's the chief analytics on our end, right? And he's the brain behind building all this out. So we felt that there's no one better than Rohan to actually take you through what we built out. One thing which I will call out is, again, this is just the V0 of what we're trying to build. It is a very fast evolving ecosystem. So much that we can learn from this, right? And how do we learn and continuously evolve is part of this exercise where we will work with you to gather that feedback, right? But over to you.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Manas, for setting the context. So before we start work, explaining to you the whole concept of the PO prioritization module, I think it's I would like to explain it from the lens of Jack. But before I do that, I think it's very important for me to introduce you to Jack. Jack is basically a D2C founder. He's a one-man army, right? He's scaling his brand on quick commerce. He is the performance marketer. He's the key account manager. He's the supply chain manager, and he's everything in between. Basically, he's living by his name. He's the jack of all trades, right? Now, like, as part of his life, right, he's taking care of all these problems. One fine Monday, he comes to office, right, and he wears his supply chain hat. As soon as he wears his supply chain hat, he realizes, okay, for a particular SKU, he has received 10 different POs across different warehouses in Blinkit or across different warehouses in Zepto or Instamart, right? For the same SKU, they're asking for about 1,000 units each. That's about 10,000 units of demand. The problem is that he's sitting with a daily dispatch capacity of 3,000 units. It could be the inventory limit, it could be the dispatch capacity limit, it could be either, right? What does he do? That's the problem most of the people, most of the brands today also face, right? You have hundreds of PO in your system at any given day, but you have a limited dispatch capacity for that particular thing. What do most of the people generally do today? They either follow FIFO because for them, they say that every PO is important to us. We understand every PO is important, but what is the business criticality of every PO? If I have hundreds of POs in the system, I can dispatch only 50 today. Which 50 should I dispatch? To do that, either they have a team who's like gathering all this data from multiple different sources, trying to build certain framework heuristics on their end to arrive to this answer, right? There's a lot of hours of data crunching which goes into this for someone to get out an answer, and then supply chain team does the action, right? So hours of time wasted or just following the FIFO. That's the current way of working that people are doing. What does GobbleCube Alpha does, right? Let me quickly show you the dashboard once. So here, if you look at this, right, there is a crystal clear list of action items which you need to do. All the POs which you have in the system right now from, let's say, Blinkit in this particular case, these POs are sorted based on the business criticality. It highlights the projected sales loss you will incur if you don't act on this PO today, right? And each and every PO is sorted based on the impact it will have on your business. So the supply chain team, or Jack in this particular case, comes to the office in the morning, looks at this, act on it, spend 30 minutes in getting all the dispatch done, move on to the next job, right? Job done. Instead of wasting hours of data trying to figure out what should I do, right? That's just one of the scenarios which we have just discussed or covered, right? Now let's move on, right? Jack wears multiple hats. Now today he's a category manager. He's now looking at his sales for a particular category. Okay, he looks at sales are going up. My ad spends are also following the similar trend, but my OSA is basically falling. Right? Immediate knee-jerk reaction would be, what is causing my OSA to drop? He goes, he checks. Okay, it is something which is basically linked to my backend inventory. My backend DUI is going down. It's significantly lower than what I expected to be. That is causing my front-end OSA drop. Now again, the first thing which he would do is go and check POs and dispatch them. Interestingly, in this particular case, there is no PO in the system. While he has been diligent in servicing the POs which have been there in the system, there was no PO. And this is a problem which a lot of brands face today, because the platforms are growing at a pace that there are products which get sudden surge in demand. There are gaps which even platforms are unable to react, and they're not raising POs on time, right? Because of which you suffer. Now, what GobbleCube Alpha does, it detects these signals very early, prevents the OSA to even dropping. So basically, let's say an example, today you're sitting on a 8 days of DUI or a particular case, right? You're sitting on a 8 days of DUI. I'll also give you an example on the dashboard, right? So for example, you're sitting on 8 days of DUI and you know that your lead time is 5 days. And you also have a goal that my backend DUI for a particular SKU should never go less than 3 days, which means when you're sitting at 8 days of DUI, that's the time when you should get a trigger, or you should get an PO in your system which should be dispatched on that specific day. Today, that's not happening in most of the cases, right? There's either a weekly PO cycle which platforms follow, you're triggering that. This eliminates all those leakages. This helps you get early signals, take early action, so that you are not reacting to the OSA drops. You are proactively ensuring backend DUI so that the OSA never drops. Right? You're building that machinery which runs automatically. Now on the dashboard, you can see, right? This is where we are showing this particular SKU, which is now sitting at the 68% OSA. OSA has only dropped, right? And the primary reason is because the backend DUI is 1 day. The expected out of stock date basis our current DRR is 30th September. This was prepared a couple of days back. That's why showing 30th September, right? Now, ideally, I should have acted on this 7 days back. 7 days back, I should have had a PO in the system. This SKU never received a PO. Even today, there's no PO for this SKU. Ideally, this should have happened 7 days back. So this eliminates all those leakages. This prevents you from getting out of stock and then going to platform and asking for a PO. This happens proactively, and you ensure there's a certain amount of minimum DUI I need to maintain on respective warehousing. That is happening.
Just to add to this, right, I think every one of your warehouses will have a different tag, right? And it will differ by brand, right? For a brand which has its fulfillment center in Bhiwandi, will have a lower tag for Mumbai at a higher tag for Delhi, and vice versa for a brand which is kind of has its warehouses in Sonipat, right? So again, the idea of building this out is to actually take those inputs from the brand, incorporate them so that we're not giving you generic one-size-fits-all answer, but actually something which is curated to how your supply chain is kind of set up.
Exactly. Moving on to another day, another problem project. Jack is basically looking at a particular product where he has been diligent in serving the POs. He has been diligent in identifying missing POs and getting those escalated, solving his problem, and building a healthy DOI. Right? He has done his job well. Right? But now he's still facing a problem that his availability for a particular SKU is not good. He wants to figure out what went wrong. I've done my job, right? And then when he looks at the overall DOI, looks healthy. But as soon as he breaks down that DOI to a warehouse level backend DOI versus dark store DOI, he figures out the issue, right? There's a problem where the front end is not getting the stocks from the warehouses. And that's where you need to escalate these kind of problems with the platform, that while I have been maintaining certain amount of DOIs as committed on the warehouse, why it's not being pushed to the dark stores, right? You're going with a very strong action with a specific warehouse name that this is where the problem exists, right? So again, showing the same to you on the dashboard, right? If I look at this now, this is where it basically clearly highlights the fact that this particular SKU, which is currently sitting on a 56% OSAR, right, has about a 230 units of backend inventory with a CPD of 3, which means about a 40 days of DOI. But it's why does it have a 56% of OSAR, right? Ideally, if there's enough DOI which is sitting on the warehouse, this should be pushed to the front ends too. You're going with a very strong auction data points and having a meaning conversation, which will result in a productive outcome, right? So that's how this GobbleCube Alpha helps you get push-based alerts and early signals in the system so that these kind of leakages does not happen in supply chain. Now let's move on to another critical problem, right? Jack also wants to ensure that he has control on his working capital, right? So he's doing a review of his working capital, where his working capital is stocked up, and he looks at multiple different warehouses across Blinkit and some Zapper, and suddenly he realizes, okay, there's a particular warehouse where he's sitting on a 0 days of DOI. There's a warehouse where he's sitting with 20 days of DOI. And there's another warehouse which has 90 days of DOI. Now, while the 0 days of DOI is getting solved through the PO prioritization and the missing POs, which now he's able to solve, but the 90 days of DOI is a crime, right? It should not happen. It should not happen at all, right? You're looking at expiries in this particular case. You're looking at platform penalties. You're looking at like working at capital getting tied up. All this proactive surplus management, right? That's what GobbleCube Alpha enables. And if there's any such signal which we are able to identify, there's stock getting piled up in a particular warehouse, right? And there's not enough demand, you proactively get alerted on those instances so that you can redistribute those stock to different warehouses where there is enough demand, right? Or you liquidate that so that you avoid the penalties from the platform or risk of expiry of the products. Again, showcasing this on the product as well, right? So if you look at this, for all these SKU cross warehouse combinations, you can see what is the SWH which is sitting on the back end, what is the kind of DOI I'm sitting on it, right? In this particular case, the CPD is very low, so you're sitting at 400 days of DOI for this specific SKU. In this particular case, you're sitting at 26, which is still probably okay, right? In this particular case, you're sitting out of 47 days of DOI. So ideally, you would not want to maintain your availability with that kind of working capital. The idea is to enable availability, like reach out 80%, 90%, 95% of availability with limited or the best optimized working capital and the availability at best DOI. That is the primary goal, right? That's how we want the problems to be solved.
Just to add to this, right, I think, again, one of the things that as brands you would have observed are certain conversations with the platforms around you cannot maintain excess days of inventory, right? And there will be certain penalties. And I'm sure it will be negotiated, but the fact of the matter is that a precedent is getting set, right? It honestly, like for us, it is something which was kind of in the making. Fundamentally, because when you think about quick commerce platforms, right, it is a space constrained system, right? It is not a system where, let's say, for example, a brand can just push volumes, and especially the bigger entrenched brands have the ability to push volumes, right, to ensure better availability. This is not a system which allows for that, right? This is a system which allows for great availability at the best DOI. That is the only optimal point at which the system can actually operate at. And I think this is a very important point because it also creates a level playing field for all the new brands, right? Because What it's saying is that the system is going to reward brands for being smart about this inventory allocation rather than having the connections to kind of push inventory. But at the same time, there is a penalty in the system as well, right? So suddenly this becomes a P&L line item as well and not just a balance sheet line item. And I think this is why this is a problem which is genuinely worthy of solving right now.
Moving on. So if you look at it, right, all the 4 things which we have mentioned, we have discussed as of now in Jack's life, right? These are ways of building operational excellence. He has figured out solves leveraging GobbleCube life and build an operational excellence across different life cycle of supply chain. Now, but there is a one ring to rule them all, which is basically attribution, building an attribution to all the supply chain gaps. So basically, if there's any kind of sales loss I'm happening during the month, which is primarily attributed to availability, what part of the supply chain is responsible for that? Is it because of not having the right kind of listings? Is it because of like POs not getting delivered on time? Is it because of POs fill rate issues? Or is it because of like not having a PO in the system? All those structural gaps are getting quantified in terms of how he is now making progress. He wants a bird's eye view now so that he can, after solving the operational excellence, he can track from bird's eye view, looking at a control tower, that how is my structural issues getting solved over the period of time that the operational excellence I've built. And this is that attribution framework, which basically tells you month over month how I'm able to reduce my total sales loss due to availability, or is it going up, right? And which part of the problem I have solved and which part of the problem is yet to be solved, right? That's how he leverages this control tower to take more structural changes and strategic level changes in supply chain.
And I think the important thing over here is, like Rohan is talking about, right? These pain points can differ from brand to brand, right? Whether it is a foods category brand or a beauty brand, right? Whether it is a perishable brand or a longer shelf life brand, whether it is a challenger brand or a leader brand, right? I think these are all variables which will change the bucket, which is the biggest problem for you per se, right? It could also be a seasonality thing, right? Which is why it is important to appreciate the trends and how they're moving. Because while you will, and as a team, you will be working on a lot of day-to-day firefighting, it is also important to take a view where you zoom out and say, okay, where are the fundamental roadblocks in the system, right? And how they kind of get solved. I think the purpose of this is to enable you to actually make those strategic calls, right? To overall improve as a business.
Hi, Urban. Myself, Joseph from Post Office. Hey, Joseph. And thanks for this product. So, it's like a great product that solves a bunch of our issues and queries. So, one query that I had is like, to start off with, how does the data or the information about the POs and orders flows into the dashboard?
So, most of this information actually comes directly from the partner-based portal or the respective portal which you have received from the quick commerce channels, right? So, for example, Blinkit has its partner base. Instamart also has its own portal. So, we ingest, like once you get, if you're already part of our as a partner, we will be ingesting your data automatically every morning. So that's how it's get integrated, and not just the PO data, even the SOX data, even your availability, everything is being tagged. And actually, it's the answer is not just coming from the PO information. It has a lot of other information which is leveraged in building these algorithms where you directly get an action, right? So from your DRRs to your SOX and then your PO, all that gets stitched together to get this answer. So that integration is done through platform data and the other problem data which we have.
Right, that answers. Thank you.
Hi, Manas. I had a question. Hi. So this is in reference to the Blinkit seller model. We're not on the Blinkit PO model right now. And what we're facing as a challenge right now is because the brand is so new on the platform, we're just about 2 months into the on the platform, our sales throughput continues to increase and the Blinkit recommended order value also tends to increase, but there's always a lag on the same, right? So what we end up facing is frequently our sales throughput will be high, but then our availability tends to really drop, right? So do you have some sort of a model where you also tend to help brands of our stage, because there is not a lot of past data for us to project what kind of demand we can expect, and that number tends to keep going up fairly quickly. So it's becoming very difficult to project how much should we keep in hand and how much should we continue to supply to Blinkit.
Understood. So I'll break down the problem in two parts. I think there are two things, right? One is that you have enough history, but the POs are not recalibrating fast enough to kind of account for the demand surge, right? The second is where you don't have enough history, or there are events, right? Like one of the things that Rohan and I actually have been debating a lot about is also like festival sales, right? Because I don't think there is any trend analysis which can help you kind of predict the kind of uplift, right? Let's say, for example, you're a jewelry brand, right? Like the uplift that you will see on a Karwa Chauth or a Dhanteras will be absolutely mind-boggling, right? So I think these are the two things, right? For the second one, what we are working on is certain like inputs from the brands which help us predict that jump, right? I think this is something which is work in progress. Again, something that we've discussed, debated, we said here, probably not part of the first version of the product, but we want that feedback and kind of like work with design partners to kind of figure that out. The second, which is like the demand or the POs not keeping pace with the increase in demand is something which is solved over here. So the way it kind of predicts that the PO sufficiency is not enough is where it kind of tells you that, okay, the way the demand is growing, your POs need to be slightly higher size, right? Which again, see, as a brand really matters, right? Because ultimately what you want is the POs should be sufficient. You should be kind of like collected, right? Because you obviously every time there is a logistics cost that gets involved, right? In terms of sending things out. So you want to be better kind of like planned and organized in that. So I think those are the two pieces that we're solving.
Okay, got it. And just to, can I ask the add-in question?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so we are from the beverages category, right? So not a very specific category like jewelry, but what we do tend to see is typically two types of surges. One is typically on the weekends, right? And also like Thursday, Friday nights. So let me also pull that into weekend. And now we are seeing that more festive occasions start to come in, so beverage sales tend to go up, right? So is GobbleCube able to also see that at category level, the search terms for, let's say, beverage overall are going up during certain time periods, and maybe that helps the predict demand for a young brand like us at some level, given that the category itself is surging, because I think the same would apply to all beverage brands.
So I completely agree with you, Adamir, on this, right? So there are certain proxies, there are definitely certain signals which can help us proactively identify that what kind of demand I should plan for, right?
Yeah.
Currently what's happening, the platform POs, what you just mentioned, are based on the DRRs which they have in the system, and they are basically giving you POs based on that. If say their objective is to maintain a 14 days kind of a DUI, they're giving you POs regarding that. Now, one thing is, you're not even considering the fact that this DRR actually happened at a, let me just reconnect. Am I audible?
Yeah.
So one important thing which actually covered in our algorithm, which the platforms, I'm not sure if they're covering that particular pieces. When we are predicting DRRs, what platform is not looking at that those DRRs actually happened at a 70% availability. So your actual potential was actually 1.5x than that, right? That demand, whatever DRR they're looking at was a 70% availability DRR, not a 100% availability DRR. That they're not accounting. So when we estimate the DRRs, we also account for the fact that the DRRs which we are taking when we are building your DUI, we are recommending the quantity. So I didn't go into details of each and every aspect of the product. When you go inside that prioritized view, you can actually see what is the platform asked quantity and what is the recommended quantity from our side. That actually solves part of this problem, where I am able to solve for this particular case where your surge in demand is anyways accounted for, because the DRRs which we are building is accounting for the fact that you are not available for certain amount of time. Second is festive planning or the weekend planning. Those are signals which we can build. Today, it's not incorporated, but definitely happy to partner with you on that and help you solve those kind of problems, because we do have those signals. Those signals exist, those proxies exist.
Got it. Super helpful. Thank you both.
Thanks.
Hi, this is Deepshri from McCain. I had a doubt. In Blinkit, we are basically supplying 90% of our stocks on ZHPL, Zomato Hyperpure Pure, for which the data currently is not available on the PartnerBiz portal. So, is there a way like this is solving for like POs that are coming out through ZHPL and the backend inventory is also shown there? So, is there a way that this can capture that demand?
Hey, thanks a lot for raising that point. Actually, this is something which I'm also struggling with, and I was looking for partners to solve this problem, right? Because, like, for all of the partners which we have onboarded, their data is directly coming on the partner base, and we build these algorithms for them. For people who are, for brands who are on this particular model, the data does not come to the partner base, so they don't have access to the POs which are being generated for you. You want to partner with brands like you to actually solve this problem. It will be a custom solution. It will probably be limited to perishables category, right? But that solution is yet to be built.
Okay. So, how can we connect more on this? Like you mentioned that we can partner on this.
Definitely. So, I think there's Kritagya who's definitely partnered with you guys. So I'll also come on one call with you guys. There's a person dedicatedly working on the supply chain as a deep dive problem. He'll involve them on this problem set and he'll take this forward with you.
Sure. Else.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think briefly, you can just drop a line to, let's say, Rohan at GobbleCube.ai and let's pick up the conversation.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
Hey guys, this is Parag from Food Brands. I just wanted to check what kind of support do you have in terms of managing supplier side constraints? So sometimes you have suppliers who could have different kind of constraints like MOQ or maybe only a certain number of orders that they can supply in a year, in a month or in a year, or maybe some kind of cash related challenges on their end that you don't want to go beyond a certain amount of ordering to a set of suppliers. How do you build that in a solution like this?
So when you say supplier, Parag, you mean let's say, for example, the platforms like say a Blinkit, Instamart, Zepto, or the provider, something like Shift or a Unicommerce, right? What exactly are you referring to here?
Supplier isn't from where as a brand I'm getting material or I want to kind of pass it. I have a constraint in terms of the amount that I can supply. I know the demand might be high, but I have only a limited amount of supply available. Then how do you kind of distribute it in the right way?
Understood. So see, I'll break my answers into two parts, right? One, I think the basic simple answer is ki not yet, right? This is not like, because again, like we were talking about, right? It is about continuously kind of going deeper into that supply chain, right? And with the appreciation that it is much deeper than what it looks, right? The tip of the iceberg versus the iceberg itself. So this is kind of our first step to go from just like a shopper level availability to getting deeper. We've not yet reached there to the specific question that you asked. Having said that, I think one of the conversations that I've had with multiple brands through the time of us building this out is a better ability to kind of predict on the supplier side, right? So while I might not be able to completely link to that, right? But if I can start looking at that demand pattern and giving you a better kind of like prediction, right? Because what we were discussing right now is just basically, let's say, a prediction for the next 15, 20 days, right? If that is the DOI that you're assuming with. But if you kind of want to go deeper, that is the next thing that we're kind of working on, right? How do you create more predictability in the system, which makes you better organized in terms of giving those demands to the suppliers? Because I totally understand where you're coming from, right? There are a lot of MOQs that your OEMs or suppliers will want you to kind of adhere to, right? So I think we're moving in that direction. The short answer is not yet. The longer answer is that, again, it will have to create multiple kind of like proxies, right, before you kind of solve the entire problem. That's how we're approaching it.
Hi Rohan, hi Manas, Sahil this side.
Hey Sahil, hi.
Hi.
How are you?
All good, man. I just had a question. But this is something very good to look upon. I am excited to review this. What do you have guys launched? Have you been working on or have any lead on the part that which we discussed that we are in order to help us plan more better the next month projections and the projected numbers which we can expect or projected PO quantity which we can project for the next upcoming cycles. So do we have something going around it?
No, so I think that is exactly the point that I was kind of alluding to, Sahil, to Barak's question, that like that is the natural next step. So you hit the nail on the head. That is the exact next step, right? Which is, okay, I just don't want to tell you what is your here and now problem in terms of going out of stock, but create like a better predictability over, let's say, for example, the next 4 weeks or the next 6 weeks, right? And as that predictability starts getting built in the system, we kind of extend that to a deeper integration, right? But again, that is exactly what we will work on as a next problem to this, along with whatever feedback we receive on the existing product.
Okay. Thank you.
Hello, Rohan. Myself, Gio. So, I am using this GobbleCube for 1.5 months. Just want to check that whether there might be 2 warehouses in Mumbai, and can we know which dark stores comes under which warehouse? I mean, then only we can supply to that particular dark stores. I mean, warehouse.
So in a way, so you're absolutely right that the mapping of a warehouse to dark stores does not exist. Platforms do not share. We can
We also will not share it.
no one shares, right? Because there are multiple reasons. One, because we have been part of it, we built it from inside. It's a very dynamic ecosystem. There's no standard system where I'm saying ki only these warehouses will serve this particular store. It keeps on changing depending on the availability across different warehouses. First point is that. Second, for us to build this system, right, what we have done, we have looked at the movement which is happening from, for example, Mumbai has 2 different warehouses, right? I know that how much unit movement is happening on each warehouse because I have this SOS data daily basis. Today, for example, one warehouse has 400, another has 300. Next day, another one has, the 400 one has 350, and the second one has 280. So in a way, I'm capturing the movement which is happening from the warehouse on daily basis. So I know how much of the demand this warehouse is serving in Mumbai. So this warehouse is probably serving only 30% of the demand in Mumbai, and this warehouse is catering to 70% of demand in Mumbai, right? That's how whenever a warehouse goes down in terms of backend UI, I'm able to tell you which one is actually more critical to serve in that way. So to your answer, do I know which warehouse is serving to which dark store? No. But for your question that whether I serve this warehouse or not, we have a better proxy of like identifying that because we know the importance of in each and every warehouse and how much of the consumption of that particular city is being served from that particular warehouse.
Hi, Rohan and Mara. This is Arlene from Fixability.
Hey, Adrian.
Hi, so we are at the marketplace model right now. We are not on that automated PO situation. So basically based on like after seeing the inventory in DRR, we only raise our POs and everything. Currently what is happening is in the cities where we are live, we don't see inventory and everything like the, based on the DRR, we see that it's available. But the distribution, that becomes difficult to, check and everything. So maybe the places or the pin codes where the demand is high and everything, they are not available, right? That keeps on happening, but on an overall city level, we are available. So I think with this portal and with the data right now, which we have, that particular concern will be solved. And if we see that, in those high demand pin codes, the distribution is not happening, we can raise it to Blinkit, like highlight it to them. That is the only way, right? So am I right in this particular thing? I'm just cross-checking. Or is there any other way as well to ensure this thing?
So that's the way, right? So if you're getting visibility of your inventory across different warehouses, let's say in Delhi, there are 5-6 warehouses in the Delhi NCR. If inventory visibility for each of those warehouses is available, it will work exactly in a similar manner for the other brands and your brand as well. If a particular area is not being served, so it will work in a very similar fashion for you. If you're getting the SOH data in the similar fashion, like the Bartloop's portal does.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Yes. I think if there, again, I would just reiterate. So for all our partner brands, I think wherever we have the data, which is most of the brands, you will see this module like by tomorrow. For anyone who doesn't see this, just reach out to us. We'll make sure that there must be some glitch in the access, which we don't have yet. We can quickly sort that out and get you live. And for all the other brands, we would love to hear from you. We will also reach out to you. And then we'll kind of get you started and see how we can kind of create value together. But again, reiterating, this is all about learning and iteration, right? So the more feedbacks that we receive from you, the more it will help us kind of improve and do better and create more value for you. So would love to hear that feedback. All right. Perfect. With that, I think thank you so much for taking the time out. I know it's a busy period for all of you. So thanks again.
Thank you guys. Thank you.